Hey, what's up? Welcome to an edition of The Mandatory in the afternoon on the West Coast, late afternoon, and in the evening on the East Coast. We usually don't really do this too often. Usually post-fight shows are hella late night, but we got you covered. Lots to talk about. Big fight weekend. Remember, if you like the content, hit that like and subscribe button. Also follow us on our social media channels. We're at The Mandatory TKO. Bryan, tons to get into. We got two massive fights. Well, one of them, I believe, is extremely massive, could be fight of the year. But Teofimo Lopez is also fighting. He's fighting Steve Claggett. I mean, listen, there's a lot of people that haven't seen him fight. He's Canadian. He's from Cowtown, also known as Calgary. And he has 7 losses. But Teofimo Lopez is fighting in Miami, which is where that's like his old stomping grounds, even though he's originally from Brooklyn, if I'm not mistaken.
Kind of.
He grew up in Miami.
He grew up in Florida, yeah.
Yeah, he grew up in Miami. But there's also another big fight that we're going to get into, and this is the one that I'm excited for. I think it's going to be fight of the year, and no surprise if you know what type of fights I like. It's Bam Rodriguez and Juan Francisco Estrada, also known as El Gallo. So we're going to get into that. We're going to give you our favorite bets. We're going to preview the fight, but Bryan, how excited are you for this weekend, and what fight are you looking forward to most?
And both of these two, unfortunately, are going to be up against UFC 303, which that's a pretty good card too. So
I gotta go find 3 TVs.
Yeah, exactly.
I gotta find 3 TVs.
It's gonna be one. This is again like this happens all the time. I feel like we just had a week of basically nothing. Rafael Espinoza fought on Friday. Great performance, by the way. Troy Isley, who we had on the show, great performance last week also, but there was like no fight to speak of really on the weekend. And now we get a big UFC card, which is supposed to be Conor McGregor and Michael Chandler. That's not happening, but damn good fight in its place. And then you have Juan Francisco Estrada defending his title against Bam Rodriguez, moving back up in weight. And Teofimo Lopez, it's a stay busy fight, but Teofimo Lopez is fighting, and I will talk about it, but like there's also some interesting prospects on this card. So, I mean, there's high profile fights, ones to watch out for. And I think despite Teofimo Lopez's opponent, people will be more excited about this particular fight than next week's ESPN main event. I feel like with the polarizing Shakur Stevenson returning on July 6th.
I think it's I'm going to be interested in that fight. I want to see
what
too, Shakur does.
I just think a lot of people are on Shakur's ass right now.
As they should be.
You know,
as they should be. So, listen, man, if you want the spotlight, I feel like you got to take all the criticism too. It goes hand in hand.
That goes for all of you motherfucking kids out there also doing the cloud chasing bullshit. I'm not gonna get on the content soapbox, but oh my god, people just want the love, and they don't want to deal with the criticism. When everybody should be open to criticism, ourselves included.
Yeah, but you know what? This is not a show where we're gonna give these life quotes. Sometimes it'll come, but we got to get into some boxing. Let's start off with the Teofimo Lopez fight, Bryan. Because the odds are ridiculous, but I think they kind of fit. They kind of fit. I mean, anytime anyone's like over a plus 1,000, I'm like, come on. Yeah. But I think this kind of speaks for itself. Teofimo Lopez is a minus 1,200 straight up on the money line, and Steve Claggett is a plus 710. Bryan, your thoughts on the line, and then tell me how you're going to be betting this one.
I hate when lines are this lopsided, but I kind of get this one with respect to Steve Claggett, who, to his credit, he's on a 9-fight winning streak. He won multiple regional titles en route to this shot. I believe a WBO International and one of the national titles, I believe an NABF title. I'm going to double check that right now, but he did beat Miguel Madueño, which is a fight that I watched, and it was one-sided. So credit to him. Yeah, it was the NABF and the WBO international title. So like this is a clearly a hand-picked opponent, something that Top Rank is giving to Teofimo Lopez seemingly on a silver platter. Be like, hey, you haven't had a cool knockout in a while. You haven't had one at all in this weight class, except for your debut against Pedro Campa, and that was 2 years ago. So it's time for you to have an explosive Teofimo performance so we can continue to show these highlight reel knockouts and show one that's a little bit more recent in these highlight packages of you. And listen, I'm willing to grant a stay busy fight to somebody who is actually going to fight 3 times in a year it looks like Teofimo Lopez is on track to do that. He better do it, because otherwise we're going to be like, what was this fight for? But, it's not amazing matchmaking, but if it's a stay busy fight that builds into something bigger in December, say Heisman night, for example, then it's like, all right, he fought Jermaine Ortiz, he fought Steve Claggett, and then later on in the year, he has a big fight against unnamed challenger. We ranked who we thought were the best in this weight class at 140 recently, so you should check that out on the channel as well. Hopefully, it's somebody who we both have in the top 10, but as of right now, yeah, this line is this line, and I think we're both going to pick Teofimo Lopez to win. It's just a matter of how.
How do you know that? Steve Claggett's Canadian. You never know. I could be biased.
That's fair.
No, that's not happening. But Steve Claggett, when I take a look at his record, I think the one name that stands out to me is Alberto Machado. That was a really good fight. He won by TKO in that fight, but he also has 7 losses. He's been knocked out one time, but he has had a lot of fights. The one thing that I will say is that you can never take a fighter lightly. Steve Claggett is a guy that likes to come forward a lot, but I feel like that goes into Teofimo Lopez's bag. This is what he wants, because what we just saw happen against Jermaine Ortiz, where everyone's like, man, he was running around the ring, Teofimo Lopez couldn't stop him. Also, keep in mind, even though he had a very impressive performance against Josh Taylor, like the best performance of his career that you could argue, he didn't get the knockout or the stoppage in that fight. So I think a lot of people want to see Teofimo Lopez have a great finish. And listen, I think this is the fight where we could see it. And Bryan's right. If this is going to lead to a third fight, if you're Teofimo Lopez and you're fighting 3 times in a year, all props to you. I'm okay with a 2-up fight then. I'm okay with the fight to stay busy before you have a very big fight, whether that's, I mean, I guess Devin Haney's going to be taking a year off or something like that, right? Are we going to get Teofimo Lopez fighting Isaac Cruz or something like that? Like, who knows, right? We don't know what's going to happen in the 140-pound division. It's kind of a mess, but there's a possibility that we could get a very big fight. So I take a look at the line. No disrespect to my fellow Canadian and Steve Claggett, but listen, he's very well liked around here in Canada. People have a lot of respect for him, and this is his chance. This is his world title shot. So you never know what could happen. Not to sleep on him, but this was specifically picked by Teofimo Lopez so he could have a stellar performance in his backyard. So Bryan, give me your pick for this bout.
Yeah, I mean, and he should be commended for his toughness, but this is why he's here, is because it's not an opponent that Teofimo Lopez struggles with stylistically. We know what the playbook on that is. It's Sandor Martin, it's Jermaine Ortiz, somebody who's going to move around, be defense first, not give you a ton of offense. And, Bob Arum, I'm sure, doesn't want to see Teofimo Lopez fight those type of dudes anymore, because he wants Teofimo Lopez to have exciting fights. So Teofimo Lopez by knockout, technical knockout, either one is -140. So go with that right now. One prominent sportsbook. That's what I took. Personally, I just think stylistically, even though Steve Claggett, to his credit, only been stopped once, he is 35 years old. And I think the entire purpose of this fight is for Teofimo Lopez to stop him. For extra value, you could look at him getting the stoppage between rounds 7 through 12. That's plus money right now. Plus 140-ish, plus 130-ish, whatever the range is. We'll see. That's something I may take a look at as well, because I probably think it'll be late. But with Teofimo Lopez having a fighter who's going to come forward, you never truly know. And I think Steve Claggett will show off his toughness, but ultimately I think Teofimo Lopez will be too much for him, or at least that should be what happens. So that's what I got. I got him stopping this one -140 by knockout or technical knockout.
Yeah, I think for Teofimo Lopez, I think, as we kind of mentioned, Steve Claggett, because he likes to come forward, that's exactly what Teofimo Lopez wants. Because Sandor Martin, that was a tricky fight for him. Sandor Martin is a tricky fight for anyone because of the way that he fights. But I do believe when I rewatched it that Teofimo Lopez won that fight. But I feel like Teofimo Lopez always has these great, amazing fights. And we're like, oh my God, Teo's the best. And then he kind of has a fight where we're kind of like, that wasn't the most exciting. So I think Teofimo Lopez wants to put on a performance on this one. And Steve Claggett, he likes to come forward. Sometimes he drops his hands, can be a little bit defensively irresponsible at times, but he will take a punch and he will throw one too. So I actually think that he might win a few rounds. Like, I don't think Teofimo Lopez is going to sweep this whole entire fight, but I think Steve Claggett will have a couple of moments, because we have seen Teofimo Lopez get hit. Has his defense got better? probably, because he has looked pretty decent as of late. I'm actually going to go with the alternate group round betting because there's more value there. So I have Teofimo Lopez winning in rounds 7 through 12 at plus 135. I do think he gets it done in the second half of the fight and he stops Steve Claggett. So rolling with Teofimo Lopez, no surprise there. Bryan, let's get into a couple of comments before we go on to the fight that we actually cannot wait to see this weekend.
Be careful.
We got to go with Jay Doss first. This is the most ridiculous comment, but we put up
You're
ridiculous comment. No, it's no, Jay. This is not what's going on here. Okay, we're former coworkers.
I'm surprised. Well, technically, still.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm surprised you put that one up, but anyway.
I thought it was hilarious. I was like laughing when I saw it come up. I was like, Jay's being ridiculous here. Let's go to TJ. Thank you so much for joining us on our live. He says, upset alert, calling it first. Claggett will win a close decision.
TJ, were you the one that called the Subriel losing to Liam Parr? Refresh my memory. We had a couple people, I think Hustleman, who we're going to get to next, actually might have been one of the people that had that. So yes. I don't think that this one's going to be an upset, but I mean, man, like.
Dude, if Claggett beat Teofimo Lopez in Miami.
Can we entertain this for a second? Like,
yes, let's go back. Let's go back to his comment. We'll go back to yours, Hustleman. Don't worry.
What if, like, because Teofimo Lopez has had a couple of dud performances again against stylistically different type of dudes, but he did lose to George Kambosos when the line was very similar. I think he was minus 1100. And people didn't see that coming. And it just changed the face of the lightweight division for a while because George Kambosos got multiple, like 4 different fights that a lot of people didn't think he had any business getting. 2 with Devin Haney, the one with Lomachenko recently. And before that, the Maxie Hughes fight, which I think was for the IBO title, which was a robbery victory, right? So if Steve Claggett gets this is the upset of the year if he does win this fight. Like, bar none. Absolutely. Even if you include like Devin Haney, Ryan Garcia, and that's been since overturned. But you get what I'm saying. This will have more shock value than even that one.
I think if Teofimo Lopez Jr., and we just have to have this conversation just to have it, we are both rolling with him to win. But if it was to happen, I don't know how you rebound from that. Like, it's worse than George Kambosos Jr. It's worse. Like, I hate to say it. I hate to say it. And
Kambosos was undefeated. Kambosos was undefeated. Steve Claggett has 7 losses.
Not even that, because like he just has never. Maybe he hasn't had the backing in Canada. To like a Cody Crowley. Cody went over to the States, right? Cody went over to Vegas and did his thing. Like, you have to leave Canada at some point. Steve Claggett's been fighting in Canada for like the longest time, right? But he hasn't had any really, really big moments in his career. This is his biggest.
At 35 years old.
Also. So if he was to beat Teofimo Lopez, yes, it would be the upset of the year. And I think it would be one of the biggest upsets in boxing history, because right now, Teofimo Lopez is arguably, and if you look at our list, the best 140-pounder. Right now.
Man, it would be the biggest upset since I don't even know what. Maybe since Kambosos and Teofimo the first time. maybe from a few years ago, but it'd be the biggest upset in a while. I'm overlooking some. I remember because I was there, Andy Ruiz, Anthony Joshua.
That was massive. That was massive.
That was 5 years ago, but I think like that I'm always thinking about what's the biggest upset since whatever, and that's the last one where it's like somebody has to match that one. The shock value for that one. TJ confirms. He's like, I don't remember Kyron Davis, Elijah Garcia, but in our defense, we didn't really talk about that one. That was a bad performance by Elijah Garcia.
Yeah, we had Elijah on the show. Yeah,
we might be jinxes. Although no, Troy Isley is working out pretty fine.
Troy Isley looks good, and he was our first guest ever. So
yeah.
No, that was Lou DiBella.
Yeah, and Tiger Johnson's been fine. Heather Hardy retired, so we're very very hit or miss.
No, this is not the Drake curse here.
Yeah, but Liam Parr. Okay, so we have that. Let's see, Hustle Man. Let's get to your comment because you put that up before. No upsets this weekend. Hustle Man says we all know the best boxing fight this weekend is Bam versus Estrada. We're about to talk about that one right now because my co-host in particular, very excited about this fight.
I'm
More
very
excited
excited.
about this one as opposed to the Teofimo Lopez fight. But yeah, I mean, we're gonna talk about that one. And Brewski also comments, been looking forward to Bam Estrada for months.
Me too, Britsky.
You and us. Trust me.
Yeah. This is arguably going to be the fight of the year. Before we move on, though, let's get to a couple of comments from TJ. He kind of explains why he feels like Claggett is going to win over Teofimo Lopez. Teo power hasn't translated to 140. He's had 1 KO in its last 6 fights. Sure. Sure. I mean, I can't really argue that, but I feel like he's not knocking out dudes, but he's also fought very good competition. Like
That's
Jermaine
yeah.
Ortiz is good competition. Josh Taylor is a former undisputed champ. So, he's not knocking out dudes. Those dudes haven't been knocked out before.
Yeah, like I don't like if Isaac Cruz fights Sandor Martin or Jermaine Ortiz, I think a lot of people would bet Isaac Cruz by knockout, and I probably wouldn't. I don't think Isaac Cruz is necessarily going to lose the fight, but we've talked about him being able to cut off the ring against some of these type of dudes, and like it's really to say these guys are just tough matchups for Teofimo Lopez or anybody to knock out, or Isaac Cruz or Subriel Matias. Like they're just Jermaine Ortiz and Sandor Martin are tough. So I don't really hold not knocking them out against Teofimo Lopez in that way. And Josh Taylor, I mean, he was the undisputed champion at one point. So it's a little bit tough. Like I can't say the power doesn't translate at this weight class yet because you had 2 tough matchups, and then you had somebody who was the standard in the weight class, who I thought Teofimo Lopez could have knocked out but did not. And Josh Taylor, like these are guys who have never been knocked out before. So he got Pedro Campa out of there. We'll see if he gets Steve Claggett out of there. If he doesn't, then, we'll have to ask some questions.
If he got Pedro Campa out of there, and I was at that fight, he should get Steve Claggett out of there. He should get Steve Claggett out of there. If he doesn't, I will be crazy surprised. But if he doesn't, I'll eat my words. TJ also said Teo doesn't use his jab. Claggett will be in his chest, and when Teo realizes he can't hurt him, he'll get frustrated and start dropping rounds, getting outworked. And we've seen different sides of Teofimo Lopez, but I think he's more focused than ever. I saw him that he did like a interview on a podcast for like 44 minutes. I'm gonna check it out this week before the fight actually happens. But hopefully he puts on a classic Teofimo Lopez performance. But we want to get to the fight that we're all waiting for. But by the way, if you are going to be betting on this fight, make sure to drop your slips, drop your comments. Let us know. Are you rocking with Teofimo Lopez? Or are you rocking with Steve Claggett for the upset? Let us know. Also, if you like the content, please hit that like and subscribe button. It helps our channel grow. You can also follow us at TheMandatory TKO on your social media channels.
Also, all right. Any undercard questions we'll get to at the end. We got to get to Bam versus Estrada.
Yes. All right. So straight up on the money line, the most disrespectful line I have seen in a very, very long time. They got Jesse Bam Rodriguez as a minus 480 and Juan Francisco Estrada El Gallo as a plus 350. Bryan, seeing this line gets me heated. This is crazy disrespectful. Do you feel like Estrada has a chance? Because Vegas is thinking right now that he does not have a chance in this fight.
Yeah, I don't like this line at all. At the same time, I think Bam Rodriguez is likelier to win this fight, as the minus 480 would imply. But like, come on, man. Like Estrada's really good. He's the champion. He's the lineal champion in this weight class. Like he's the Ring Magazine champion. The difficult thing here is that he's 10 years older. We all think Bam Rodriguez is going to be a superstar. He's sort of on that trajectory, though imperfect, but like he looks like somebody who's going to be tough to beat. And Juan Francisco Estrada beat Chocolatito twice. His other signature wins en route to just being a champion, has 13 world title fights, knockouts in 6 of them. The difficult thing is the 10 years age gap. He's 34, Bam Rodriguez 24, and also year and a half away from the ring. And that is tough as you settle into your mid-30s. So to me, I still think that plus 350 is very tempting on somebody that good. But Bam Rodriguez was originally the champion, the same title, WBC super flyweight title, was the champion in this weight class, moved down to flyweight. Now he's back up. So you would think that Bam Rodriguez would be able to navigate that. But God, this is such a great fight that I'm disappointed to see the line be like have this level of disparity. You get what I'm saying?
It makes me mad because this is El Gallo. His name is El Gallo, and we're going to give him a plus 350 odds to win on the money line. I hate it. I think what Juan Francisco Estrada has done in this weight class speaks for itself. I mean, you talk about those wars that he's been in with Chocolatito, one of my favorite boxers of all time. His resume speaks for himself. He's one of the best boxers in this division, and he's one of the best boxers to ever fight in this division as well. So to see this line against a very young Bam Rodriguez that doesn't have the experience that Juan Francisco Estrada does, I look at this line and I'm like, I know how I'm going to bet, and we'll get to my bet in just a moment, but I'm looking at that line and I'm like, plus 350, I would put money on El Gallo for being plus 350 just because the odds are so juiced. But Bryan, how are you going to be betting this fight, and which way are you leaning?
All that being said, I'm taking Bam Rodriguez to win this fight. Because the age, the layoff, I mean, he just beat the shit out of Sonny Edwards 6 months ago. And we're talking about him having been in the ring a year more recent than Juan Francisco Estrada. So to me, Bam Rodriguez wins this fight by decision is where I place it. Plus 125 is where I found it. I saw plus 110, obviously plus 125 better value. But Bam Rodriguez, I think he has power, but 5-0 with 2 knockouts in world title fights. I don't think it kind of like we were talking about this, and he's pound for pound better than the person I'm about to mention. But I think people want, for example, Xander Zayas to be this big puncher, where I'm like, he's an all around really good boxer, doesn't have a ton of weaknesses, if any at all, and is also really young. And if he's going to knock out guys, it's going to be more so an accumulation of punishment. I feel like Bam Rodriguez is a version of that. Also, the other difficult thing is he got to the world title picture very early in his career. It was like 14, 15 fights, which is to say, it's hard to knock dudes out continuously when you're constantly in world title fights because you're fighting elite competition, fight in and fight out. And Juan Francisco Estrada has 3 losses. He's never been knocked out before. I don't think Bam Rodriguez is going to be the first, but it's entirely possible that it is because of the layoff, the age, and things of that nature. And Bam he's good enough to have one of those super special performances where it's like, oh shit, he put it all together. He stopped the lineal champion. He did it in, I don't know, the 9th, 10th, or 11th round. Like he did it late in the fight. Like there's a part of me that wants to take a shot, and still I might, at Bam getting the stoppage, particularly between rounds like 9 through 12, because you get some good plus money there. I may take a little shot at that just as a sprinkle, but my safest play is Bam to win by decision. And I don't think it's going to be a super wide decision either. I think Estrada's going to get some rounds. I think, we were talking about this before. We both agreed that 116, 112 range, maybe there's a knockdown. I'd be interested in betting over half a knockdown in this fight just because of the volume we're going to get. But I think Bam wins this fight, and I think he is going to be like continually somebody we discuss in pound for pound lists for years to come.
So when we did a draft, Bam Rodriguez was someone I selected pretty early in that draft. I'm really high on him, but I think this is a fight that's going to be extremely tough for him because despite the fact of El Gallo having such a long layoff, once he gets into a rhythm and he gets into a flow, he is extremely tough. I think this is going to be an all-out war. We're going to see like over 1,500 punches thrown. I don't know what the number is going to be, but it's going to be crazy. Like this is going to be an all-out battle, and I think that some rounds are going to go to Estrada, some rounds are going to go to Bam. Here's the thing. Juan Francisco Estrada is older now, but when we talk about power, Bam does have power, but he hasn't been knocking dudes out left, right, and center. He doesn't have to. But I do think when it comes to power, and Bryan, I think Chocolatito had more power than Bam.
I probably agree with that.
Yeah. So, yeah, and he wasn't able to knock out Juan Francisco Estrada, even though El Gallo's older now. So when I take a look at this fight, I think it's going to be an all-out war. I think there's going to be over 1,500 punches thrown. I think these guys are going to be in a battle back and forth. We're going to see them trade. It's going to be absolutely amazing. I can't wait. I can't wait till it's Saturday. I wish I could go to sleep right now and wake up tomorrow and it'd be Saturday. But I think that Bam Rodriguez will win on the cards, but it's going to be pretty close. I think it's going to be 115, 113, 116, 112, as Bryan mentioned. I think it's going to be extremely close. And I think both these guys right away are going to want to get off to a good start, especially El Gallo, because he's been out of the ring for so long. So he might be a little bit hesitant, where Bam might be a little bit more aggressive in the beginning, but I do think El Gallo will pick up speed. So I think Bam Rodriguez wins by decision at plus 135. But let me tell you, I'm taking a look at Juan Francisco Estrada to win by decision plus 600, and I'm probably going to place some money on there just because the odds are crazy. And we know that El Gallo has done it in this division before. He's extremely talented, no fear. I love the way he boxes, and he's got power too. He has power too. Now, a lot of people go back to that second Chocolatito fight because he won that fight by split decision. I thought Chocolatito won, but I could be biased, whatever. But he came back and then Cortez dropped him, if you remember that. I think it was in the 6th or 7th round. And everyone thought that Estrada had a really bad fight. So you know what? The layoff could be a thing in this fight. It could very well. But he also came back in his next fight and won by majority decision against Chocolatito. So I think it's one of those fights where it's going to be an all-out classic. And if it's really, really good, who knows? We might get a second one.
Yes. I haven't even seen the first fight. I want the rematch already. Because we expect it to be that good. The other interesting sprinkle, like Juan Francisco Estrada's plus 1100 to win by knockout. Now, again, we're gonna get to a couple comments on this because people are excited about this fight, as are we. To me, this is the fight of the weekend in a lot of different ways. At least it is in boxing, and it may be across combat sports. Like, it's gonna be that interesting and captivating, which is why I'm disappointed that the line is what it is, but I also kind of get it. But Estrada is plus 1100 to win by knockout. Bam was in that plus, I want to say, almost 200 range last I checked. It's leaning towards a decision, but there are some people who are placing bets on Bam Rodriguez to win by knockout, which I don't think is going to be the case. But the over-under is also 10.5 rounds, which is telling you, hey, Vegas is like, this might be a deep waters type of fight, which is why I think if you are going to bet any knockout scenario, I would probably do it late. It's boxing. Shit happens. Guys get caught early on. But I think that 9 to 12 range is going to be captivating regardless of who you like in this fight. We seem to all like Bam here. I see people in the chat. I don't see anybody. People are giving Estrada the respect, but I don't think anybody actually thinks he's going to win this fight, which is probably why he's plus 350. But I still think he should be getting a little bit more respect. But
I'm going to bet on him. Like, just for fun, like $5 plus 600. To win by decision. Yeah. Why not? Like, because if Estrada wins, it's going to be by decision. I don't see him knocking out Bam Rodriguez. And the odds are just so good. So if, like, I waste $5 all the time. I could waste it on betting on El Gallo. You know what I mean?
All I'm going to say is this does feel like I wouldn't bet a ton regardless of what or who you're betting on or what your bet is, just because I do think this is one of those fights where, like, we could have a shocking outcome. Like, we could come away from this on the post-fight live and be like, holy shit, I did not think there was going to be a knockout in the 4th round. You know what I mean? Like, it could be one of those.
Yeah, and it definitely could. Like, Bam could impress like that, or maybe Estrada. I have a hard time believing that Estrada's going to knock out Bam, but I do think Bam, I think there's a possibility Bam could knock out Estrada. I definitely do believe that because he's extremely talented. But as you heard right there, Bryan said it, we are doing a post-fight show, so after Teofimo Lopez and Steve Claggett, after Bam Rodriguez and Juan Francisco Estrada, we're going to be hopping on, hanging out with you guys. We'll go over the fights. Maybe we'll even get into a little bit UFC because it'll probably still be on when we get on. But nonetheless, make sure to join us. Let's get into some comments, though, before we get up out of here, Bryan.
Hustle, man. Cannot deny Bam's resume right now. Remember, he beat Quadras, which fucking good win. Stopped Rung Vasai.
Yes.
Stopped Sonny. Now Estrada next. He's one of the top 5 guys fighting the best of the best. Did I have him in my pound for pound list?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know if you had him in your pound for pound.
We did this a while. This was like early last year.
We both mentioned him. I know I had him in my draft. That's what I do know. I had him when I drafted him, but
We'll update our pound for pound list before the end of the year anyway.
yeah.
We may do another draft also because that was fun, and also shit has changed since then.
Yeah, a lot has changed. So
Yeah.
we're gonna do a draft like just before football season, I think.
Okay, so TJ, Bam's last three Mexicans he fought went 12. I didn't want to like sound offensive there, so I was like being careful. Estrada is the best of them. Most likely goes 12. Yeah,
Yeah.
we're all in agreement. No, we both have Bam by decision. I also like the over. If you can get enough value there, because that shit is like creeping up on minus 200. So, but yeah.
Yeah. Any final thoughts, Brian, before we get up and out of here?
XL says this is going to be the first Bam fight I catch.
Yo, XL, you're gonna be impressed. This guy is and this is the best fight to watch because you're also watching Estrada. So these guys are gonna be trading shots and everything. It's gonna be an all-out battle for sure.
But also go back and watch his fight against Sonny Edwards. Like, go watch some of the other fights that we're talking about. Bam,
Yeah.
like, he has the potential to be just one of those special dudes in these 115, 118 weight classes we're talking about. Maybe he gets to featherweight at some point down the line. We'll see. But for now, like, I think flyweight, super flyweight is perfect for him.
Could you imagine in a couple of years or a few years if we ever saw it? Now I'm being crazy.
I know what
Could
you're
you
gonna say.
imagine Bam and Inoue, yo? Because could you imagine that? That would be one hell of a fight. Bam's young right now, though. But yeah.
I mean, is that more realistic than Tank and Inoue? Probably.
Yeah. Tank's not. That's not going to happen. And I don't see Inoue going up like that either.
I don't think Tank and Inoue. I don't buy that. Now here we go. Hold the fuck up. Hustle Man. Bam versus Nakatani.
Yes.
Nakatani is a murderer. That dude has dynamite in his hands. Let's actually get into. Can we get into like the undercard?
Yeah, go for it.
Because well, first let's do the zone card because I was telling you, and people keep the comments going. We'll get to whatever literally you comment as we demonstrated at the top of this episode.
You got to show the stupid comments too. So
like Sonny Edwards is making his return in a tough fight against Adrian Curiel, which is I think he'll win that, but that's pretty interesting. I was telling you, I think Ramla Ali at plus 225 against Yamileth Mercado. Like, I don't know if she's gonna win that fight, but like
good value.
That's a lot. She has a lot of ability for somebody who's plus 225. I know she's gotten knocked out before, knocked out silly, but avenge that fight. Like I'd very much, and that's a world title fight, by the way. That's super bantamweight WBC. Ramla Ali is skilled. I would look at her to potentially win that fight. And somebody else asked about one of the fights on the undercard for this one. Ping It Media. Who do you think is going to win between Sean Garcia and Amado Vargas?
I really like Amado Vargas.
Yeah,
I'm a big fan of his.
I'm not surprised by that at all.
Bryan knows the fight style that I like and some of my favorite fighters. So I'm sure you're not surprised by that. I'm gonna rock with Amado Vargas. Come on.
Yeah, me also. Robesi Ramirez, somebody mentioned him too. Now that I'm looking at, and
I think this is a very interesting fight for him.
He needs it. And Benitez is not a slouch.
Not an easy fight, but I think Ramirez does win that fight.
He better.
And I think he has to do it with style. Like, it can't be a dead performance. I think he needs one with style in this fight.
Yeah. I wonder what the move for him is. I feel like Top Rank may just position him to get a rematch, to like just get a couple tough wins and just get a rematch against Rafael Espinosa. But
I don't know if anyone wants a rematch against him. I don't know if that's a good play for him.
You know,
Espinosa is like just ridiculous. He might be my favorite fighter in that weight class now.
Elvis Rodriguez is on this card, which listen. There's some good fights on this. There's some good prospects, I should say. I don't know about good fights. There's some good prospects on this card. Emiliano Vargas, a lot of people are excited about him.
Yes.
Elvis Rodriguez is on here. Nico Ali Walsh is trying to avenge the one loss on his record. And against Sona Akale. And I mean, we'll see.
Man, you know what? I feel like for Nico Ali Walsh, for him, he has so much pressure on him, but there's so much hype on him too.
He gets hit a lot. He has
Like
power.
too
Don't get me
much.
wrong. He has power, but he. This is how he lost that first fight. And honestly, he got another decision shortly before that where it was like, could have lost that one too. But
I feel bad for him because there's so much hype around him, and like anytime that he fights, they're always talking about the greatest boxer of all time, Ali, and it's like he has to be in that shadow, but I think there's a lot of flaws, but he's had some really good moments. But I'm excited to see him back in the ring too.
and then Jan Santana, who's Dominican, whose last bunch of fights have been in Puerto Rico, actually 11-0 with 11 knockouts. He's on the undercard. I think people should watch him because he's raw, but he's got some power, and is at super featherweight, which is a fun weight class. Look, man, we got good fights this weekend. And the Bam Rodriguez-Juan against Juan Francisco Estrada, that's going to be the one. But there's a bunch of other like fights that have some stakes. Like, listen, man, this is one of those cards where you could look at all the prospects and be like, all right, if I take every underdog and one or two of them hit, I'll be good in terms of like financials. So I do wonder who's going to get upset, if anybody.
Yeah, agreed. And by the way, we are going to be doing a post-fight show. If you didn't hear that, we'll be rocking with you after Teofimo Lopez-Steve Claggett, after Bam Rodriguez and Juan Francisco Estrada. I can't talk anymore. I've been talking all day. And we'll be rocking with you, not at like specifically after if one of them ends earlier. We're going to do it after the final fight is over. But we'll be rocking with you here. Maybe UFC will be on as well. But nonetheless, make sure to join us and make sure to hit that like and subscribe button if you like the content. Bryan, do you have any final thoughts before we get up and out of here?
See y'all Saturday.
Okay, that was it. That's my cue to get us up and out of here, guys. Follow us at TheMandatory TKO.